Good evening and welcome to Big Bets on Campus presented by BetMGM. I'm Michael Calabrese, and tonight we have a special MACtion edition. So we're breaking down everything on the Tuesday and Wednesday slate in the Mid-American Conference. Our band of merry MACtioneers are back in action here. Of course, that's the granddaddy of advanced college football analytics, Collin Wilson, and the most plugged-in man in all of college sports, Brett McMurphy. And a reminder to our audience, everything we talk about, our picks, the data, the analysis, all available in the award-winning Action Network app. And don't miss out on this special offer. BBOC is presented by BetMGM, so use promo code ACTION when signing up to get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. So let's hop into it with our favorite side of MACtion Week 12. Can't believe we're all the way up to Week 12 at this point in the season. Let's get started with you, Collin. Who do you like here in the Tuesday or Wednesday slate?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with Ball State. So I live in Oklahoma, and it's been snow, sleet, rain, and I start thinking to myself, this is coming from action, and it is. It's hitting Muncie, Indiana on Tuesday night. Going to have some weather effects there. Rain and snow expected during the game, and Ball State's the most stable offense out of these two teams against Ohio. They are seventh in havoc allowed. They have a great weather running back in Carson Steele. He put up 198 and 3 TDs against Toledo. And there's just a large gap here in tackle rating. Ohio's defense is 122nd to Ball State's 15th. And I love Ohio and I love their offense, but they're most deadly through the air. Curtis Swart's explosives are going to get taken away here because Ball State's defense is just limits everybody. They're 15th in defensive pass EPA this season. So I love both these teams, but I like the Cardinals better, especially when you look at the weather conditions.
I'm going to dig deeper into the European weather models before I share my total play on this game, but I'm glad that you got us started here because it is important to keep the eye on the weather and how that impacts games. Traditionally, MAC games are played in bitter cold conditions, sometimes snow and sleet, and this game certainly looks like it's going to be one of them. How about you, Brett? What do you like for your favorite play here in Week 12?
I'm going with Central Michigan over Western. I mean, Western Michigan is done, toast. They've lost their 7th game last week. They're out of bowl contention. They've clinched their first losing season since 2013 when they went 1-11 with some first-year guy named PJ Fleck. You guys like nicknames? I do. Reggie Jackson, of course, he's Mr. October. Guess what? Jim McElwain is Mr. November. Since coming to Central Michigan in 2019, McElwain is 12-1 in games played in November. That's right, 12-1. The Chips have won their last 7 November games. That's the nation's 6th longest streak. Not enough? Okay. How about freshman quarterback Bert Emanuel Jr., who rushed for nearly 300 yards last week against Buffalo? What's that? Oh, he just scored another touchdown. Longtime NFL fans like myself will remember his father, wide receiver, Bert Emanuel, who actually has an NFL rule change named after him, the Bert Emanuel rule. He caught a ball, made a catch in the 99 NFC Championship game. Replay ruled the tip of the ball hit the ground. It was a no catch. Bucks got screwed. Rams went on. No, I'm not bitter. The NFL would change the rule because of that. Well, guess what? The emergence of his son has changed the chips around. Give me Central Michigan as they continue their march to get bowl eligible.
Love the deep dive, family history, busting out the family tree on that one. I'm going to turn to Eastern Michigan, getting 7.5 playing against Kent. And it's pretty simple. Kent's defense remains a disaster. They're 114th in success rate. They're allowing 8.4 yards per attempt through the air. That's 119th in the country. Can't get off the field on third downs. And they're allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete 70% of their passes. That's 130th in the country. But for anyone who listens to the Group of 5 deep dive, they may be familiar that I put Kent State in podcast prison, and it's because they are Jekyll and Hyde offense. They can be the best offense in the MAC, or they can turn the ball over and stub their toe in the red zone. They're 126 nationally in red zone scoring percentage. I'm not sure I've ever seen a team that has such a high ceiling and such a low floor at the same time in the MAC, or maybe across all of college football. And I understand that Eastern isn't quite as explosive with Austin Smith, the quarterback, but Samson Evans is a bell cow. He's going to be relied upon in this game, and there's just not a whole lot Kent can do schematically to slow him down. If you take out his 4-carry game where he got banged up against Northern Illinois, his last 3 MAC games in full, he's averaged 104 yards per game with 8 touchdowns. So I'm going to take the Eagles here. The fact that it's, right around that key number of 7, I like it 6.5 or better. So go ahead and play the Eagles in that spot. All right, let's turn to our favorite totals. Back to you, Collin, for, I would imagine, with weather conditions as they are, potentially an under?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I'm going to let you talk about it, and then I'll come back boomerang around in that Ohio Ball State. But I'm going to go with Bowling Green just purely on schematics, analytics, and what this team is doing offensively. They are on a downward spiral. Falcons offense has really stepped back since we went to midweek MACtion. 65 rushing yards last week against Kent, 144 passing yards against Western Michigan the week before. This is a team, their quarterback, Matt McDonald, he was averaging 7.5 yards per pass heading into midweek MACtion, and now it's about 5.5. So the dink and dunk offense is on, and they're just not getting anything downfield. And that's bad news against the best defense in the MAC, which is Toledo. They're 10th in coverage nationally, 13th in tackling nationally. That's going to be a real problem for an offense that's struggling to get points up on the board. And then finally, the reason why I just wanted to focus on the team total under for Bowling Green is that Toledo is a top 25 defensive havoc team. They are able to get the ball out on the carpet. They are able to get behind the line of scrimmage, and that is the big problem with Bowling Green. They're bottom 20 of all FBS teams in tackles for loss allowed. Everybody plays in the backfield of the Falcons, so I just don't see a lot of opportunities for scoring here for Bowling Green. I'll take a team total under on the Falcons.
I'm going to keep the under mojo going. As you mentioned, the weather in the Ohio Ball State game is in question. The snow is one thing. I'm going to put that on the shelf for a second. To me, it's more important the sustained wind that are predicted at this point between 10 and 15 miles per hour. That's going to ground these passing attacks, which then means Carson Steele, as you mentioned, probably the best running back in the MAC. He's a battering ram, but he's not somebody who necessarily busts the big runs. He only has 6 carries of 20 yards or more all season long. So he's someone that's going to continue to move the chains, but not necessarily someone who's going to hurt your underplay in this spot by, popping off multiple 50-yard touchdown runs. And honestly, in ideal weather conditions, this would be an overplay for me, given the Maple Missiles hot streak for Ohio. But just too many questions with the weather conditions and everything that you laid out in terms of Ball State's defense. I think this is a bad situation for Ohio, who's been, on an incredible heater in MAC play, but it has to stop at some point, or at least one would think. How about you, Brett? What do you like in terms of your total here in Week 12?
Well, I'm going to take a flyer with an over here. Kent State and Eastern Michigan. I think you mentioned the weather. The winds don't look like they're going to be that bad. It's obviously going to be cold, so the winds are mild. I think I'll be okay. And look, Mike, you hit all the high points on why you like Eastern Michigan. I can't disagree. For me, this is a KISS game. Keep it simple, stupid. Kent State has a MAC second best offense. They are the MAC's second worst defense. Also, Eastern has been an over team. They've gone over 3 of the last 4 on the road. I think the weather cooperates, and we get a typical MACtion midweek game over Kent State and Eastern Michigan.
I have to say, this Eastern Michigan team's been difficult to figure out throughout the entire year. The fact that in this same season, they essentially got Herm Edwards fired. It feels like a different year, but it could be the fact that they're playing different quarterbacks. But I agree, Kent is so generous on defense. I don't think it really matters who ends up suiting up for the Eagles at quarterback. All right, before we get out of here, one more thought. Any picks on the cutting room floor for Week 12 that almost made the slate? We'll start with you, Collin.
Yeah, I mean, I took an over in that Ohio, Ball State game, against your under, but it all comes down to wind. When I made that bet at over 54.5, it was because the wind was projected to be 5 miles per hour. I look last night, it's up to 10. I look this morning, it's up to 15. So now I'm thinking of ways to get out of this, because Ohio has a great running back in Sia Bangura. So if this wind continues to increase and that number stays at 55, the biggest number, key number in totals, then it's definitely worth an underplay if wind's going to play a factor. If it's not, there has been games where ice has pelted down on MACtion games before, specifically Toledo a couple of years ago. I believe it was on Halloween, had a total in the 50s. That game was in the 90s by the third quarter, and it was just ice falling everywhere. There was no wind. And that really kind of goes to the advantage of the offense to be able to make a cut, and the defense just can't react. So I would keep an eye on the wind. The wind is the biggest factor when it comes to that total in that Ohio Ball State over or under.
So as it relates to bonus picks or potentially situational spots where you're looking at a live bet, anything that caught your eye, Brett?
I know we all love Stuckey. He's not on the call with us here. I'm going to use Stuckey's strategy here that he has perfected better than anyone else. I'm going to pass.
I'm going to go ahead. In terms of a live bet, I want to see how Miami of Ohio looks early in their game against Northern Illinois. They still have an opportunity to get to 6-6 on the season, so it's not necessarily throw up the white flag time. But in terms of how they played last week and some of their issues in the passing game, I want to see them move the ball for a drive or two before I hop in. And the fact that, they're actually catching a point, even if you wait a drive, you can still probably get a number under that key number of 7 in that spot. So that's just an opportunity I'm going to look to potentially be playing or fading the Red Hawks. You can find all of our picks for today's slate, plus the rest of the Action Network staff rating and analysis in Action Network app. And a reminder, if you have a bad beat, don't hold it to yourself. Please call in our bad beat hotline at 959-BAD-BEATS. The BBOC is presented by BetMGM. A reminder to use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. And a programming note, BBOC Live will be back on Saturday at 10:30 in the morning. Be sure to listen into our podcast throughout the week as well, so you can stay on top of line movement, player availability, all the happenings to keep you in the black on Saturday. This has been Big Bets on Campus, presented by BetMGM. For Collin Wilson, Brett McMurphy, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks so much for joining us.